Grand dawning, great rising, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is 360 Info Network. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of our program. 360 Info Network is sponsored by the Cleveland Observer, and the Cleveland Observer is a newspaper that is getting you the news and information that you need. And as we continue on this journey, we are sharing new content and expanded content for you on this radio station and our YouTube channels. Just a quick reminder, we are broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can go to our platforms on those respective channels. You can join the Journey with Hamtonio on YouTube. You can also go to my YouTube channel. You can visit us on the 360 Info Network Facebook page, and you can also go to my LinkedIn page to access this program. We're definitely happy to have you aboard today. We have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking with some of the principals of the Little Africa Food Cooperative. We got to shift our focus to food security and take care of the fact that we have deserts in this community that don't have access to food, and we will do everything that we can to make sure that you have access to food. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you the founder and the creator of 360 Info Network, Brother Hamtonio. Hamtonio?
Yeah, welcome to the show. We welcome you in joining us on this journey for discovery of knowing who we are, and what we should be doing. That's very important. So we try to bring you good information that you can use and to help develop you, enhance you, empower you, and things of that nature. So also we're expecting a little show to snow today. We're in Cleveland, so prepare yourself for that. It may be a good time this weekend to really kind of stay in and watch some good movies or television or something to that nature. So yeah, so we welcome to you to the show, and we're excited that you're here, and we got a great show for you.
All right. I was thinking about who would be important to have on the air with us today, and it occurred to me that it has been a minute since we've had a conversation with Tila and Lena. I refer to Miss Lena as Mother Earth. She is a Capricorn, among other things, and she is very well connected to Mother Nature. She likes to grow things, and she's also connected to the vibrational platform because she does things like sound bowls and meditation and stuff like that. So I'm really happy to have her with us today. And also, we have the founder of Little Africa Food Cooperative. She is a mother, among other things. She just shared with us that she has this beautiful dog, this poodle named Apollo. And Apollo might want to show his face sometime during this broadcast, and we'll welcome that because who doesn't like a cute dog? But today we are here to talk about food security. And as a result of some things that were going on in our community, I think it may have been during the pandemic because this is not the first conversation that I've had with Tila. But I think there was something that happened that caused her to say we have to do something, and that doing something was the creation of the Little Africa Food Cooperative. So as we get started, just going to go to the president and founder of the Little Africa Food Cooperative, Telia Badu, and asked her what precipitated the genesis of the Little Africa Food Cooperative.
Peace, family. Thanks for having me here, first off. And I appreciate y'all consistency on doing what y'all do. Where Birth to Africa was actually in 2016. So this was before COVID. And the birth actually happened behind the murder of Philando Castile. Um, which had nothing to do with food, although he was the chef. Um, it had more so to do with like just taking ownership of our livelihood. And my thing was like, yeah, they killing us, ever so often, but like they're killing us daily with the food. Like, and it's less than 1% black farmers in the United States. And how do we go from being the sharecroppers and the owners of everything and the first people to like literally like we are very few if any, in the food space. And so that was my thing, is to be like more proactive. Um, and like having a grocery store. The co-op idea came a little later, understanding like the model of like not just capitalism of what one person owns something, but it be a shared model, a shared ownership, which has been like the one of the most biggest challenges in the grocery store and within the co-op, is because I try to get people to understand like what cooperative means and what shared ownership means and what that looks like for real, has been one of my biggest challenges. But that's like what birthed through Africa though, was like just having our own ownership in the food space, because we're dying every day behind eating food where we don't know where it comes from. We don't know the practices of how they're growing their food. Um, and so just owning that portion of it.
Yeah. So I know you just kind of explained it, but could you talk a little bit more about what the concept of a cooperative is? I know back in the day over at 100 and I think it was 116th and Euclid, there was something called the food co-op.
Mhm.
And I remember that there were people who were working in the co-op, and in exchange for working in the co-op, they got some type of benefit. And then everybody who was a member of the co-op had some type of benefit just because of their connection to it. So I'm not saying that this is what inspired you to do it, but if you could just give people a better understanding of what co-op looks like as you have it in place.
Sure. So the cooperative model is just really a shared ownership. So what you're referring to, and it's crazy because I've never been to this co-op that existed prior to, or even heard about it until after the Africa started. But what you're referring to is like a worker owner co-op. So it's like where you work and then you receive benefits. Our model is very similar to that too. It's a worker owner co-op, but it's not even open yet. And it's also a patronage owner. So like if you shop there and you own it, you get a percentage of, once it's profitable, you get a percentage of what was made during that fiscal year. And then you also get discounts on whatever the food is, whatever sales is going on. You just get a lot of different benefits from a shared model. So kind of like when, let me see if I can think of another co-op idea. Uh, mm, mm, not what's the opposite? It's not a bank, but it's a
Credit union.
credit union. A credit union is like a cooperative model because it's like no person who owns a credit union. Like everybody who opens up a account at the credit union, they now have a share in the credit union. So that's literally like the model of a food co-op or a co-op. Is a credit
Yes. Well, in a way, it's kind of an anti-capitalist version of food marketing and distribution. Because in the capitalist model, we go to places like Whole Foods or, Save a Lot or whatever. And basically, the people who are shopping there are being exploited based on the model of marking things up and all the things that they do in that particular world. And when the people who come into that store don't have an ownership interest, then they have no control over what happens in that store. They're just coming in to spend their money.
union.
But what you just described seems like a connection to an idea that we have a village and we can use cooperative economics to provide benefits for everybody who's involved in that. So on top of that, you're talking about growing food locally, and we can have the conversation about how much better locally grown food is for you than having food trucked in from halfway across the
Mhm,
world, and everything that they have to do to make sure that that food is okay when it gets to
mhm,
you. And sometimes those things are problems as well.
mhm.
Miss Lena, I want to bring you into the conversation and just ask you what it was that motivated you to get in contact with Tila and those who were creating that co-op, and what role you're playing in it today.
member for Little Africa Food Collaborative, and I was invited to be a board member. But the idea of a food co-op was important to me, and I thought it was something that we needed to pursue in Cleveland as a tool for us. And if I could read from my notes a little bit, because I did take a few notes. Um, Co-ops are our history and our technology, and it's a part of our cultural customs. And in many ways, our survival depends on working together and sharing our resources. So this is technology that's not just like computers, but it's those things that make our life a whole lot better. So this is a tool that we have always used in difficult economic times, such as this. We've always come together at some point, to make a way.
Okay. Brother Antonio, you've been listening to what we have described as a food co-op. What are your thoughts about the necessity of having this type of a platform in Cleveland? You're muted, bro.
So I would go even further to say that this is that type of system is needed, like you kind of indicated, throughout our community. It's just a spoke in the wheel of all the things that we should be we dealing with, and having a network of resources, that have a communal and cultural undertone or overtone to it. You can use a model like this and use it to deal with other issues that are in your community as well, where people are coming together, joining together, information. That's what our dear brother Hagens was trying to do, something similar. As a whole, bringing folks together into the village, to where you share information and things like that. And I truly believe that really that's going to be black folks salvation in doing something like that. It's going to be a point in time we're going to have to resort back to things like that. And that's why I'm a proponent of getting back to the basics of learning how to can, learning how to sew, learning how to grow your garden, and things like that, because it's going to become valuable, I think, at one point in time.
Okay. So, Tila, I have to ask you, since it was your idea to create this, what did you have to do to build the co-op and create what you have today?
I feel like that's a good question. Um, Really, what I had to do was get out here and network with people and learn people and build relationships with people. And I'm still doing that now. Um, we've acquired two buildings, but they aren't even up and running, and I need funding for that. So just like building networks and learning, and identifying the farmers that are locally in Cleveland, and then that are locally like with the surrounding states. So lately I've been working with um Loiter, and they work with like local farmers in the we call them the Great Lakes. And so like learning who to identifying who the black farmers are, who the urban farmers are, and then sourcing from them. So last year we piloted a farmers market at our location outside. It did okay. Um, Next year I plan to turn it up a notch, and through the cold months I plan on doing pop-ups at Maroon Square, which is in East Cleveland. And so just like partnering with people, because I think that's like key to any business, is like really partnership with people and building relationship with like-minded people and people who doing the same thing that I'm doing. So like networking with everybody in the food space for real. That's been my thing for the past like 2 years, like real hard.
You have one of the most significant urban farms in the country in the space down there off Kinsman and 82nd Street called Riddle. Can you talk about any type of relationship that you might have with them?
Um, we built with them a little bit, like when we first started. So maybe about like 7 years ago. But we really don't have just me being honest, we really don't have like a great rapport with them. No.
Okay. Well, perhaps that's something that can change. I know one of the focuses that they have is actually soil. Uh,
Mm.
the brothers that run that are involved in cultivating soil, and the soil is developed to a point where it is better for the crops that are grown. So, I think it's really important for us to kind of link arms because we're all in this together, and we need this sense of community because it's really going to be vital for our survival. Before we got on the air, I was talking to Miss Lena about the whole idea of having access to food, and the nightmare was what happens when you go into the store and the shelves are bare and there's no food there. And if you're depending on sources outside of yourself in order to feed you and they don't provide your food, then what? When we look historically, our grandmothers and grandfathers, they made sure that they were growing food on the property that they owned. And you fast forward to 2025, you see that we're not property owners the way we used to be, and we're not growing food the way we used to. So, not only is it important for us to grow food as you are doing, but it's also important for us to understand how to grow food. And I want to talk to Miss Lena because she just explained to me that she's looking at the African American Museum and the hoop house that they have there, and something that she would like to do there. Lena, talk to us about the importance of growing food and how we go about it.
It's quite important for us to be in control of our food source. He who controls the food controls the people. So when we control the food, we know what goes into the soil, we know the seeds we select, we know the crops that we grow, we know the nutritional value, and we know how to get that food to our people. We know how to build those access streams to get that food to our people. It's so very important that now in this time, we don't have time to really debate about this, about whether we should be growing food or not. No, everyone should be able to grow something in times like this, even if it's nothing more than herbs on your windowsill, even if it's nothing more than growing something in pots somewhere. This year, I didn't have access to any particular large space of ground to grow on, but I grew on the front porch. And I grew all types of herbs, which I have brought back in from the cold, and they're growing on my windowsill now. I grew kale in 5 gallon buckets. So you can start with something as simple as a 5 gallon bucket and get you some good soil. You can get it from Ridall, or you can get it from one of the soil makers out there, or you can grow it yourself. Because what they're doing is a high quality compost. They're taking food scraps and they're turning it into a nutritional source to plant the seeds in. We can do the same thing. We can save our scraps from our vegetables and such and grow the best. I've done it before. I've grown the best, and they call it black gold. And it's nothing like it. You can put your seeds in there and they will grow miraculously. I grew kale in 5 gallon buckets. I grew squash in 5 gallon buckets. I grew string beans in 5 gallon buckets. I mean, it's endless what you can grow, and just with just a little bit of input. 5 gallon buckets you can get for free at a lot of your delis. They have, and they got to be food safe in order to grow in them. Yet they have to be food safe. So you can't go to Home Depot and get the orange ones because they're not food safe. So you want the food safe buckets. Get you some seeds. Seeds are kind of little, a little minimal purchase, and you put those seeds in the bucket, and there you have a food source, that you control. That can be spread all over the community. I would love to see a growing program for the community that's established so that people know how to grow their own food.
I'm so glad
Uh,
that you said that, Miss Lena, about those Home Depot 5 gallon buckets because sometimes I see buckets and I'm tempted to just retrieve them because I have this fantasy about growing potatoes in
Mm,
in a
it
bucket.
do gotta. Y'all hear me?
So you need to get a bucket that is food safe.
yes, yes, definitely. And
On
like I
Yeah.
said,
Facebook Market is a good place to source them from too. I did during COVID. I bought a whole bunch, like $1 on a bucket, and they all food grade, and you could grow melanated mushroom. Also do They do soil too. They create their own compost. But to veggie back off of my Melina, like with the growing is one thing, but we also have to take advantage of that. We live in Ohio and we live in Cleveland and we live by Lake Erie, right? Like we could fish, we can hunt. Like this is stuff we can do all year round. You know what I'm saying? So like even though like I'm not like a meat eater, like when you hungry, you need to eat food and you need to know how to grow and you also need to know how to hunt and you need to know how to fish. Those are all things that you need to know how to do because we have to eat to live. So just wanted to add that.
Could I add something as well?
Yes.
Foraging is big. There are so many medicinal plants, so many edible plants that are
Everywhere.
around us. They're
Yes.
everywhere in Cleveland. Lamb's quarters, that's one of the plants that comes up in the spring. Excellent to eat. It
Black
almost makes
walnut.
spinach. Yes, we have
Walnuts grow everywhere.
plantain, which is a good thing for bites and scrapes and poultices on the hand when you have a scrape or a bite or something to help heal that. There's just, and it's said in the metaphysical community that whatever you need will sometimes grow around you. So if you look at those, what a lot of people call weeds, but we know them to be medicinal. We know them to be things that we can utilize for our health. And many times those particular, because the universe knows what you need at all times. Many times those plants will grow around you. Like at one point at my house, there was a lot of plantain growing around. Well, I needed that. And I have utilized that. One of my neighbors had something, I think she had a rash or something. And I showed her how to use that plantain. Some say that you take it and you put it into your mouth and you mix it, you chew it up a little bit, and then you put it onto that particular ailment on your skin, and it will help you. But those things grow freely around, and it's free. It's free. You just need to figure out a safe source to to pick these things, because you don't want to pick them if they're growing next to a traffic highway where there's a lot of fumes and everything that's getting into it, and make sure that that source is not contaminated. But yeah, foraging as well as using a hoop house, like Vince said, we're looking to work with the African American Museum to build a garden project over there as a learning space. So I want that to be a teaching space where we teach people how to grow in different methods, in pots, in ground, raised beds. But we're going to use that space as our template to show people how to grow year round, because that's what you can do in a hoop house. You can grow year round. So even now, if you go over to Ridall right now, they have tons of hoop houses and they're growing plenty of greens. They even have probably started seeds in December. So these are some of the things that we can definitely do with a covered space like a hoop house.
It's interesting. I've been in the house that I've been in for 33 years, going on 34 years. And I can remember in years gone by, I didn't know what it was, but there was purslane growing on my
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was then, but I know what it is now. And there's nothing I can do to plant purslane, but I'd be looking for purslane.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
um,
purslane very good.
Yeah. And another thing that is really kind of a treasure that really gets a bad reputation, and that's dandelions.
Yes. Indeed.
Dandelions, every part of the plant is edible. There's been research that has shown that it's very effective in the treatment of the C word, which we
Mm-hmm.
can't say, but you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there are things that aren't getting the support that they need from the medical community just because of the exploitation that takes place as a result of the pharmaceutical industry. And we can talk about that a little bit today. But I just want to make folks aware of the fact that, as you said, we have so many different options. Foraging is one of them. But I think with the foraging piece, it requires some type of educational
Yes.
platform so that people know what
Mm-hmm.
they're looking at. I know that they have apps, and you can use your phone and point your camera at a plant, and it will tell you what the plant is. It will tell you if it's edible or not. And so you can use that as one of the ways that you have access to food. But you're so right, Miss Lena. There's food growing all around us. And when you listen to people like Dr. Sabi, they advocate for more eating of food that is around you and not so much eating the things that are commercially grown, because when they use those commercial processes, many times, for instance, when you grow potatoes, when you're a company like McDonald's,
Mm,
you don't want the potatoes to have blemishes.
mm-hmm.
So you bioengineer the potato so that it doesn't have blemishes, so that you can maximize the output of your growing. But on top of that, you use all these chemicals in the processing of these potatoes, that they're actually toxic for a certain period of time before they can even be used as a food product.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really, again, important for us to know what's growing around us. I know I had something growing in my front yard that I thought might have been elderberry. Uh, I'm not sure if it was elderberry or not, but I've noticed these plants growing somewhere in the Glenville community. But for whatever reason, I just wasn't convinced that they were elderberries. But if you drive around or walk around Cleveland neighborhoods, you will see wild berries growing in certain places. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if
You can
they're
use
blackberries.
Google.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You can use Google too, like the Google photo picture. Like
Mhm.
everybody has Google access to Google on their phone. Like if you go to the Google camera, you can literally take pictures. Because I do it when I walk. I take pictures of the plants, and it'll tell you if it's edible, if it's medicinal, like what you could use it for. It'll tell you whatever you need to know on Google, and you got to download the app.
Yes. Yes.
Well, actually, they profit from our ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
on everything. They really do, and it's really a problem. And you can say that across the board on as far as the people, the general population's ignorance to things. And I really have problems sometimes, and people try to tell me to slow down a little bit, but that's why history and things are so important for us to know, the backdrop and the background of folks that we are dealing with, that we are cohabitating with. And the reason I say that is because we know this particular society is capitalist or money driven. And as I stated before, I had the pleasure of spending some years on a farm and growing and raising animals and things like that. So it's all about those particular commodities are based on weight. How the farmers get paid based on weight. And so we know through the past that, since the society is money driven, that they're going to do anything they can to get the weight that they need to make the money. So I'm saying, how can we be so trusting that they are doing the right thing as far as our food is concerned, and feeding us? We should know, especially African Americans, should know that what we're dealing with, that they're going to cut corners in order to do that. And the second thing, as far as dealing with the plants is concerned, and we talked about using the dandelion root, and we can't say what it's good for and all that, but people need to understand. I asked the pharmacists, about where do we get the things that we know about as far as medicine is concerned, and he said the plants.
But, mhm.
He said the plants. They go around and find out different communities around the world, and maybe using this for that, using it for that. They study it. They take the active ingredient out of it and synthesize it and sell it to you as a pill. So this is it's been the foundation for people for forever, for thousands of years, because we still saying, hey, this thing was used in China for thousands of years. They used it for this, use it for that. So like I say, they profit from our ignorance, and we can't continue as a people to operate like that. And we need to go back. When we talked in the beginning, we talked about this communal, this sharing, this profit sharing, this co-op. Those are the things were beneficial for us as a people. And so this is why I push so much. When we're going to go back and look at what the people who came before us, our ancestors did, and I think that's the key to us solving some of the issues that we're having as people.
All right. We're going to step away just for a few moments to acknowledge our title sponsor, the Cleveland Observer, and we will be right back momentarily. Stick and stay with us. We'll be back with more 360 Info Network right after this message.
Cleveland has stories worth telling and voices that deserve to be heard. That's why the Cleveland Observer is proud to sponsor 360 Info Network with Vince Robinson and Antonio on AM 1490 WERE, where truth, culture, and conversation come together. Each week, host Vince Robinson and Antonio open the door to powerful discussions, from the arts and community history to the issues shaping our neighborhoods today. And the Cleveland Observer is right there with them, shining a light on the people and movements building a stronger Cleveland. Tune in to 360 Info Network and visit CLEobserver.com to read, watch, and share more stories that inform, inspire, and unite our community. Because together, we are Cleveland's voice.
Welcome back to 360 Info Network, brought to you by the Cleveland Observer newspaper. It is both online and it is in person. So there are different locations around the city that you can pick up the Cleveland Observer and you can be informed about what's going on in our communities. You know, one of the things that the Observer will do is it will shine the light on entities like the Little Africa Food Co-op, and we are so happy to have with us today Ms. Telia Badu, who is the founder and president of the Little Africa Food Cooperative, and we also have Ms. Lena Boswell, known to some as Mama Lena. I call her Mother Earth. She is someone who is very well connected to growing things and growing folks spiritually. You know, Mama Lena has those sound bowls, and she'll take folks into a meditative trance and get them in touch with the power that lies within them. And so I want to amplify in this moment the importance of us even consuming produce. And I'm going to lean on Lena to talk to us about why it's important for us to eat fruits and vegetables. And I think your mic might be muted. I got you unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Fruits and vegetables are where we're getting our vitamins and our minerals from. There's a thing called epigenetics, and it suggests that certain diets will turn on certain genes or turn off certain genes. So, you know, the word that we were alluding to earlier, there are certain foods that you can eat and consume that will turn off that gene that has the propensity to maybe exacerbate that particular condition. So foods are very, very powerful, very powerful. They really are our medicine. And if we look at what is currently being served to us in these grocery stores and these restaurants, it's food-like substances, but it's not real food. Real food is something that is not adulterated, that is eaten whole, that is consumed to receive the most nutrients that you can receive. It's grown in methods that do not adulterate it. When we grow our food on our small farms or our large farms, we could be considered organic simply because we don't use strong herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides in the growing of our food, because we know that that gets into the soil and it impacts the food that is grown. And once we eat that food, it also impacts us. And there's such a thing as bioaccumulation of chemicals. When you eat from the standard American diet, what does that spell? SAD, standard American diet. Anywhere the standard American diet goes on the planet, it will deteriorate the health of the people. And this is what a lot of people are consuming right now. And it's deteriorating them. It's giving them diseases that in our day, before the standard American diet, we didn't get those types of diseases. You know, you could be 90 years old and never have a hint of heart disease, never had a hint of diabetes, but not with this current diet that is full of sugar, salt, and fat. That's kind of the main proponents of this. It's not really whole food based. It's not really plant based. But whole foods are the key. Whole foods are the medicine that we need.
Well, it's interesting as we have this conversation. One of the big frustrations that I have personally is just looking at the food that's available to us. And you spoke a little bit about the fact that there are a lot of ultra processed foods, and we're relying on those things, and we're not relying on fruits and vegetables to the extent that we could and we should. But I think one of the big missing pieces is education,
Hmm.
because we just have a lot of ignorance about our food. We don't really understand the role that it plays in keeping us healthy. And so we make the wrong choices, and we take in things that are detrimental to us. And then we end up in, I call it the death care instead of
Hmm.
health care, because it's not health care. It's helping people to manage their dysfunction, but not eliminate it. Can you talk about a little bit more about that connection between food and medicine, and perhaps what the Little Africa Food Cooperative can do to create an educational platform so that folks can make better choices in what they eat?
Yeah, there's a distinct connection between food and being used as medicine. I believe it was Imhotep, one of our Kemetic teachers, that talked about food as medicine, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Um, but we must look at food first and foremost instead of these processed foods. The processed foods are nothing, they're going to do nothing more than degenerate our health. We are regenerative beings. And so we need those things that will help our cells to regenerate. We don't have the same body that we had when we were born. Our organs regenerate. Your liver regenerates over such a period of time. Your spleen regenerates. All of our organs regenerate over time. And in about a year, we're like a whole new person. But you got to be able to maintain that with some good whole foods. Those foods that have nutrients, those foods that have high nutrient value, high minerals, high vitamins. And that, that's the only thing I can really say about that. It's just important. We cannot not consider that.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing, though. Again, we talk about being involved and concentrating on insignificant things. Too many insignificant things out here, and that is distracting us from making rational, observatory decisions. And this is the problem I have. Look around. I will put it out to you and our listening audience. How many people that is having knee replacements,
Mm.
hip replacements, dementia symptoms, prostate, diabetes, all these things, Miss Lena, that you kind of lean to, that some back in the day, folks old didn't even get come down with most of these illnesses. But I'm saying we as a people, we are walking around and all this mayhem that is, as far as our health is concerned, is all around us, doing what it's doing, and we are really not tuned in and paying attention to what's going on. Every cause, for every action, or every cause has an effect. So we looking at the effect, the after effect of all these things. So let's go back and see what is causing this.
Mhm.
What is causing this dysfunction? It wasn't natural for folks to be walking around all the time, everybody having a knee replacement, a hip replacement. So that just lets you know that it's something that's going on with our foods. And we should be doing having these classes and having more information out there and talking to ourselves and doing things to research why this is happening. Because, like what you said, your cells regenerate every so many months and replenish itself. So, what's stopping us from doing that, as far as our bodies is concerned? So we're not paying attention. They're keeping us distracted with all the basketball, the footballs, and all the rest of the stuff. They distract us from and slowly killing us. And so it's like when they do the light experiment, when you sitting in a room and they turn it down ever so slightly till you're sitting in the dark and you realize and now how did I get to this place? Because they're slowly putting these mechanisms in place, and it's right in your face. And every hospital you around you, they are building it up and putting on new wings. So they're expecting a lot of pathology in the future because the hospital is a business.
Go ahead, Lena. I know you got something to say about that.
In Kofa moment right now. I'm going back. Our Kemetic ancestors said, "Know thyself," and like you two have alluded to, it's about information. It's about knowing who you are and how your body works. We
Mhm.
have to know what foods are going to heal our bodies and what foods are not going to heal our bodies, and that is an inside job. Healing is incurable, meaning it's curable from within. We got to know who we are. We got to know how our spleen works. We got to know how our heart works. We got to know how our lungs work and what things we can input into this divine vessel. Because one of the things about it is you can eat as as bad as you want to eat. This divine vessel is still going to work hard to keep you alive because that's its job, is to keep you here and keep you breathing and keep your blood flowing. So once we learn about who we are, we're going to have to take time away from social media. Who cares about what the T person does in office? We be aware, but not
No,
consumed with that information.
we
You
gonna
know what
call
I'm
it.
saying? Learn about yourself. I'm on a
Mhm.
personal journey to learn as much about myself as possible. I'm dealing with a few challenges that I intend to overcome, through my a healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, and proper inputs into my body because I want to be here for a while. I got one great grandchild. I want to see more.
Yeah. Well, you know something, you raised a really good point, and that leads me to thinking about the compartmentalization of medicine. You know, first of all, that self-knowledge is so important. But what we do is we go to someone outside of ourselves and ask that person what's wrong with us because we don't know ourselves. Some of us are acquainted with our bodies and how they function. And, I mean, you're a woman, so you know what it's like to have had to negotiate what happens on a monthly cycle, those kinds of things. So there's certain things that you know about yourself. But, for the most part, we come to somebody with a white coat, we ask them what's wrong with us, and then they go on the hunting expedition.
Mm-hmm.
They run all these tests, and they run these tests based on numbers that may not be relevant to us, but may be relevant to other people, and then they force those measurements on us as if they're the golden standard. There's an argument about blood pressure, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and they set it at a certain level and they tell you that that's what is normal. And if you don't conform to that particular number, then they want to recommend to you that you start taking some type of medication.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine who said he went to the doctor for a checkup and they measured his heart rate and it was 40 beats per minute. And they said, "Oh, well, that's too low.
Mm-hmm.
That's unusually low." And for that, we want to put you on a heart monitor and we want to pull you into this system that at some point or another is going to result in some type of treatment or another, which means that it generates profits for the hospital, but you're not being totally honest with the person that you're talking to. It just
Mm-hmm.
so happens that this person is someone who is a long distance runner, and people who are in good cardiovascular health, their heart may not beat as fast as others.
Mm-hmm.
So for that person that has that great cardiovascular system, 40 beats per minute can be normal and can
Mm-hmm.
be okay. But you step into that office and then they start planting seeds and scaring you into doing things, that lead you into one thing after another. So they start giving you these pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals have side effects. You take more pharmaceuticals to treat the side effects that are created by the pharmaceuticals that you're taking for something else. And now here you are taking 8, 9, 10 different pharmaceuticals. And this is just the way that you manage your life.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you knew yourself, you knew nature, you knew what you could find naturally in nature that's not going to give you a side effect for what you're treating, then you're in a much better position. So it just comes back to knowing ourselves. But watch this, not just knowing ourselves, but remembering ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Mm-hmm.
because in some realms of thought, we're not just the person that's in this body.
Mm-hmm.
We have an eternal spirit that has been here for years. You talked about
Ashe.
epigenetics,
Mm-hmm.
and the truth is that we have epigenetics and we carry the collective trauma and injury of all those who came before us. But then we also have environment.
Mm-hmm.
This is just
Mm-hmm.
another observation. When we go to the doctor says, "Oh, well, this is hereditary."
Mm.
And they rely on it being hereditary to say, well, this is just something that's destined to happen to you because it happened to those who came before you.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we look at our ancestors and we look at what they had to survive on in terms of food sources, I mean, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say even the bad stuff was better back then than it was
Mm-hmm.
now. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Brother Antonio talked about growing up on the farm and raising animals and whatnot. If you had cows, you were probably feeding the cows grass. The cows
Mm-hmm.
go out in the pasture, they graze on the grass. Their digestive systems are suited to digesting that grass, and they don't get sick from eating the grass. Well, you fast forward to today, and we turn the cows loose, and they might graze a little bit, but they're also feeding on genetically modified corn,
Mm.
which is foreign to their digestive systems, which causes them to get sick. And then what do? Because, as Antonio said, they want that animal to weigh as much as possible when it gets to the station where they're determining the value of this cow.
Mm-hmm.
So they fatten the cow, they give it drugs to keep it alive, and they make the money. And in the meantime, you eat the cow that ate the growth hormones,
Mm.
that ate the antibiotics, that went through the trauma of being destroyed. That's another thing that we don't talk about when it comes to consumption, because it's not just about the physical being, but it's also about the spirit of the animal that you're
Mm-hmm.
consuming. And I know I'm going way out there, for those who enjoy their chicken every Sunday
Mm-hmm.
and at different days in the week, and enjoy the pork chops and all the other things that, once again, our ancestors took in
Mm-hmm.
and were able to survive. But the point that I'm making is the bad stuff was better back in the day than it is now.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to meat,
Yeah.
I remember eating chicken. We ate a lot of chicken when I was coming up. But my dad used to go to a chicken house. I believe it was on St. Clair, where the old Omar's,
Yeah,
where the
yeah,
Omar's,
right there. Yeah, that's
where
right
what,
there.
right, Antonio?
Right there.
And he used to go there, and we only ate chicken once a week, honey. We didn't eat chicken every day. We
Mhm.
wasn't frying chicken every day. We ate chicken once a week, if that. Maybe we ate it once every 2 weeks. But he would go to this fish market and he would pick his chicken, and they would take it in the back. I believe these might have been even some Jewish
Could have
handle,
been. Mhm.
because they would take it in the back. I remember them having the yarmulke on,
Mhm.
but they would take it in the back. They would process that animal in the most humane ways, just like halal, and bring it back wrapped up in butcher paper and newspaper, and that baby would still be warm when we got it home. But that's how we consumed our meat, and meat was not a main portion of the plate. It was more so beans and maybe grains and maybe a lot of vegetables like collard greens and things like that. But meat was, in a lot of countries, meat is a seasoning. It's not even a portion on the plate.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes.
Let me say something right here. Again, I like to get to some of the, causing some of the root problems of this dysfunction that we're talking about. Because to me, it's a dysfunction. If we're not, paying attention to these things that are happening in our society, that's a mental dysfunction to me. It's as far as the clarity is concerned. We're not going to move forward with any of this type of information until the individual understands that folks don't have your best interest, that you are under attack. Until you understand that, normally, and we do it at times, any animal or anything that is under attack, you circle the line, you try to defend yourself. So if you're dealing with, and if you first come up with the concept of understanding that folks really don't have your best interest and you're under attack, then you are forced to search out another way of doing some things. And until we come conceptualize that and come to that conclusion, then I think a lot of us will start taking these steps, in order to make a better life for yourself and your children and things of that nature. But I think more often than not, we walk around oblivious, trusting, and believing, even when your history shows you and tells you that folks have not had your best interest, and we still walk around trusting like that, and that's a problem for me, a serious problem for me, because the stuff is right in front of your face. So my point is they mesmerizing us, brainwashing us with all this other stuff, with the fluoride, with the this, with the that, what's going on? Because I'm having a hard time of understanding why people are now much more in a rage about
Mhm.
what's actually going down and what they're seeing. So we've been lulled to sleep about what some things. So like you always say, when like in the substance abuse arena, they say before healing can take place, you first got to recognize that there's a serious problem.
Yes. Hmm. Not only have they waged war on our plates, but they have put us, like you said, they have put us in a position where we're not taking action. And we
Mhm.
got too many people with too many degrees and too much information for us not to be able to create our own systems. And that's what this thing is all about for me. I've always talked about divesting from the system as best I can. Divest from this system because we can create our own. And we're doing it all over the
Mhm.
country. Nothing you got to do is you got to go outside of Cleveland. You got to go to these other places where they're doing these things. They are building farms. They are building co-ops. They're building food systems. They're building food hubs. It's happening. And we just have to have the wherewithal to think that we can do it. And we can not and stop propping this system up that's dying. This system is on life support. It's about to die. So we need
Mhm.
to be trying to
Mhm.
build something new.
Mhm.
This is the new world order,
Mhm.
building something new from the ground up, one seed at a time.
Mhm.
Yes. Well, I think you talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of the importance of us doing what we're doing now. But I also want to amplify the fact that the reason that we're doing this broadcast today is just to give people a sense of the fact that there are people doing things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when we look around and we listen to the narrative and we listen to the complaints, and people they'll commonly say, well, ain't nobody doing nothing. Well, that's not true.
Not true.
There are people who are doing things, just to pick up on what you said about starting this project at the African American Museum. It's as simple as you seeing something that needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
and taking the initiative to say, how can we do this? And then moving things forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as was just stated, there are urban farms around the country.
Mm-hmm.
There are Black owned grocery stores in different places in this country. It's not that we're not doing anything, it's
Mm-hmm.
that the what we are doing isn't being talked about.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about it because that
Let's support it.
enables us to change the narrative so that we don't get so entrenched in, oh, woe is us, nothing we can do.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier about controlling the food supply.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a person with the initials BG. I'm not going to say who he is, but y'all know who I'm talking about. BG, that owns
Mm-hmm.
all the farmland in the country. And then you have this idea that we've got global warming, and the cows, because of their flatulence, they're destroying the ozone.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't cultivate cattle the way that we used to, which is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a bad thing. I
Right.
mean, but the problem is when you create the alternative, you're creating something that is an engineered food product that is just as detrimental as the cow that you want to retire because it's gas,
Mhm.
methane causes destruction of the ozone.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, as you said, we have to create our own platforms. We have to create education within that system
Mm-hmm.
so that people understand you should eat this, you should not eat that. And then there's a whole nother thing that we'll get into on the other side of noon, and that is anti-nutrients in our food supply. We have vegetables, for instance, that may have a component that will discourage its consumption by something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you have an awareness of what those anti nutrients are, then you can do something to push back against that anti nutrient and make that food something that is nourishing for you. Sprouting nuts, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
sprouting grains, for instance. When you have that knowledge, you can take into account those measures and then make that food even better for you as opposed to taking in something that's going to cause you problems. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to talk about oxalates. We're going to talk about lectins. I know you've heard of them because you see
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Stephen Gundry online
Mm-hmm.
all the time. We're going to talk about those things on the other side of the break. You're listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. We're also simulcasting live to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you want to see and hear 360 Info Network, you can actually go to YouTube and check out The Journey with Hamtonio. And on that channel, you'll be able to see and hear this broadcast. You can also do that on my YouTube channel. You can go to the 360 Info Network Facebook page and view this program live and in living color. And you can do this on every Saturday. Brother Antonio, just a few moments before we make our migration online. Anything you'd like to share with the audience before we make that departure?
All I would say, is what our ancestors said over all the temples in Egypt. Know thyself. Know yourself. Let your medicine be your food, and let your food be your medicine.
All right. Sage advice. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to advise you, go to his channel, hit like, comment, subscribe, and also hit that notification bell because once you do that, you'll get notifications when he posts content. And the same thing on this end, you can support me in my mission of bringing this information to you by going to that YouTube channel, hitting like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you will get the alerts. Also, I want to thank Tila for joining us today. She had to move on, but again, we want to amplify what the Little Africa Food Co-op is doing. We have with us a board member, Ms. Lena Boswell, and we're gonna lean on her to give us some more information about food and the things that we need to be doing with it. Also, just want to give a big shout out to our man in the studio, the man behind the wheels of steel, the man at the controls with the plan, and 360 net 360 Info Network in his hand, Tone Harley. Thank you, brother. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make it a great day. Peace.
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 We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And this is 360 Info Network brought to you by the Cleveland Observer. Our guest is Miss Lena Boswell. She is a board member of Little Africa Food Co-op, but she's more than just a board member because Lena is one of those types of people that she gets involved in things and she puts her hands in the soil and she grows things. And I got to tell you, Miss Lena, I would really like to be where you are and have the knowledge of how I can put a seed into some soil and watch it grow into something that I can eat. So, perhaps you all can do some classes or something
Yes.
and invite us over to show us how to do what you do. And then I can get those food safe 5-gallon buckets and start growing my potatoes in my
Of
dining room.
course. Oh
Yes.
yeah, for sure. That's the goal, Vince, is to like Antonio said, education is everything. We got to get this information out to the people, and show them that it's really not that hard. A lot of people in my years of doing this, I've been gardening on vacant lots since pretty much like 2009. Okay. And a lot of people, when I first started on the street, they were one of my elders was telling me that she, that's like slavery. I picked cotton and I did this, and I said, honey, okay, I understand all that, but it's not slavery anymore. This is freedom. If you're in control of your own food stores, that is freedom. And so we have to look at it that way. It's no longer slavery. I know that happened to our ancestors, and God bless them, but that's what got us to this point. If it had not been for those ancestors, we would not be here. So let's consider this, change the narrative. Let's change the perception of growing food and turn it into something that's empowering and something that is freedom for us, to be able to control our food and being in those environments. Karen Washington, who is a farmer who comes to the Bugs Conference. That's a Black conference that's put on every year, Black urban growers. It happens every year, and Karen Washington is the organizer and founder of that conference. She says that our hues as Black people is a testament to our belonging to the earth. We belong to the earth, and the earth is our healer. And the more we connect and reconnect with her earth, the more we will be healed. So this is why I'm so passionate. This is spiritual work for me, for real. I've been growing food since I was about 6 years old in the backyard of my childhood home. And my dad had a garden back there every year. He only had a few things. But that was during the time when we wanted the manicured lawn in the front, but in the back of the yard, that's where the freedom was. That's where the empowerment was. That's where the party was, because he grew all types of greens and beans and cabbage and all types of things. And that's where I really got my start. So thanks to the ancestor William Boswell for giving me that start. And I also learned how to cook food and prepare food from my mother, Josephine Boswell. So I'm gonna give them a shout out and a verbal libation today.
Go ahead.
I was just going to mention canning. You held up a couple of books before we started.
Yes.
And one of the important things that we must do is not only grow the food, but preserve the food so that it is available to us when the growing season ends. We need a food supply, and we don't want to make that trek to Save a Lot or Whole Foods or Giant Eagle or wherever we get our food from, but we can actually go to the pantry like Grandma and Grandpa did.
Well, you know what? If we go ahead, Antonio.
Yeah, I was, to me, like I said, my mind works in a way of a mental state of being, because all our issues is mental. All our issues are mental, because I'm looking at this word called complacency. And that's the state of being where we're at right now. We're complacent. We are willing to allow someone else do the job for us. We have to. That's the only way I can say, because people, are able at all times. Who would want to be in a position to where, and we see it all over the place in the financial world, the business world, whatever. You just look at how they did with Kyrie and what's the other guy's name? Kyrie and the other rapper. I can't even think his name. Kia. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Kyrie and them, how they, the one that makes the clothes. While I'm driving, I can't even think of his name. Anyway,
you're not talking about Akon, are you?
No, Kyrie Irving and him was going through it at the same time when he was trying to up in New York.
Kanye West.
Kanye, goodness, I couldn't think of his name for nothing. Okay, yeah. Look how they attacked him, both of those guys, and able to pull the rug out from you all the time. Those people in LA and things of that nature. You say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, and it's just like our food. How can we continue to allow a system to have us hostage like that, to where any time that you don't disagree with them, they can pull the rug out from you? So I'm saying a people that finds themselves in that position always should be trying to do what they can to deal with, to get their independency and not be dependent on people. And even with you look at our communities and things around. See, I'm attacking us mentally, conscientiously. How we allow folks to come into our neighborhood and control our food source, and they get mad at us for any given reason. They can pull the rug out from us. So for us to be that complacent and allow and give people that type of power to do that to us like this, that's something's wrong with that. For us to continue to be in that type of place like that and be all right with that and fine with that. That's 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 a problem. You know what I mean? That's a problem. So that means when we talk about these animals, it's just like that. The farmer herding these animals that we just falling right in place and go right in our space and be slaughtered, and that's what's happening.
Well,
Yeah.
when I take into consideration what we have to do as a people, we in many cases we don't have the luxury of just being home just to work on the farm or whatever. We got to work jobs, we got to take care of babies, we got to take folk to school, and a lot of this consumption to me is based on convenience. These foods are convenient right now, and it is what it is. So the thing is, we want to be fed. Fed is best. I heard this stated at a conference I went to. This was a member of the Detroit People's Food Co-op, and she said fed is best. So in a lot of cases, they're eating foods that we know are a little bit unhealthy, but as opposed to starving, what are we going to do? But convenience is that killer of determination, and that killer of creativity, and that killer of doing for yourself. That's how I kind of see it.
But
Well,
culture comes into that play. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Exactly.
but culture comes in very important in that play. That's why I preach culture so much. Because if you start rearing these kids from young on how to do these type of things and take care of themselves and explain to them the importance of that, it'll be a part of your lifestyle. You say we might not have the time. How much time do we spend watching television and the football game and going to the club? All that time and energy can be diverted to taking care of yourself, because you know the importance of doing that, because it is connected to your very survival. So we just misappropriate our time because they got us so wrapped up in all the little stupid stuff that don't make any sense, that still promotes their agenda, and promotes and put monies in their pocket. And so we don't take time out for ourselves. That's all. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just wanted to veggie back, to use Tila's term. I wanted to veggie back to the point that you made about convenience, because convenience means giving up control.
Yeah.
When we look at this whole idea about digital identification,
Mm.
they want to give you a digital identification, maybe put a chip in your hand, or, whatever biometric means that they could use, so that when you go to the store, all you got to do is look at something or wave your hand over something with the chip, and it's so convenient. But when they go into your body and they take something that belongs uniquely and specifically to you, you are giving up complete control of your being to something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when you go into the new East Side Market and you grab that bag of Doritos off the shelf and you put a product into your body that's bioengineered,
Mm-hmm.
and we gonna go conspiracy theory on this, so y'all hold your hats or whatever. But we got the existence of microplastics,
Mm-hmm.
we got the existence of nanoparticles, we got the existence of radiation that is surrounding us. So we got all these things that are doing everything that they can to bring us down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's all about convenience. They sold us on 5 George by telling us that our devices would work faster,
Mm.
that we could download things quicker, that somehow it would enhance the ability of those devices to work for us. But then on the other hand, you look at people who repair those devices and they go in and take the thing apart, and there's no 5G chip in the device.
Mm.
So, so what was the whole purpose of 5 George?
Mm.
Well, 5 George was there for other things that they
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily tell us about,
Mm-hmm.
you see. And once again, they're selling us convenience, but with that convenience, we lose control.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that is really at the top of my mind right now is just how they use currency to control us. So when we talk about those organic fruits and vegetables that you mentioned, you're growing things and you're not using the pesticides and herbicides and everything. And everybody thinks that, well, there's a higher cost because you're
Mhm.
doing that. And so they don't want to spend the extra money that they might have to spend in order to get those things. So they'll go with the cheaper version of it. But
Mhm.
when you go to the cheaper version of it, there's a cost that goes with that, because that cheaper version is going to be the very thing that causes you to have to go to the doctor. And then you have to entertain that whole 20% copay
Mhm.
that's built in. Now, what many may not know about that 20% copay is that the reason that they came up with that was because they didn't want us to live.
Mm.
And they thought if we had to pay for our health care and we couldn't afford it, that would expedite our exits from the planet.
Mm.
That's the reason that they came up with that copay. But
Mm.
that copay doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody. It's
Mm.
not a race thing, it's a class thing, it's a money thing. And so when we think about eating healthy, people have this misconception that, well, if you eat healthy, it means that it's going to cost more because you're going to places like Whole Foods to get your food, right? But the fact is, if you're not spending 15, $20 a pound for that sockeye salmon, or that farm raised beef, or whatever that exotic food stuff is, then you can reduce the cost. You can buy a bag of organic beans, for instance, and that
Or
bag,
grow them.
yeah, I'm just saying, but you could buy that bag of beans, not the can, but the bag. You could soak those bad boys, and you got enough beans to eat for a whole week. There are things that you can do to reduce the cost of consumption. And then the other part of it is, you don't have to eat as much as you think you
Mhm.
need to eat.
Mhm.
So, if you eat 3 meals a day, then you paying for 3 meals a day. But
Mhm.
then you have some folks who eat 1 meal a day,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they get the necessarily caloric intake based on that 1 meal. And on top of that, they've gotten the autophagy that takes place because you eat once a day and you're giving your body a chance to rest.
Mhm.
You see? So let's do that. Let's talk about the benefit of fasting, Lena.
Oh yeah, fasting is very good for the body. I have done what's called intermittent fasting for a while, and I actually used that technique in addition to some other techniques to lower my blood pressure. And it happened very quickly. I had gotten into a position where my blood pressure was a little high and elevated, and I asked my doctor, could I just do nutritional fast? In other words, I want to use high nutritional foods in order to manage this blood pressure. So she agreed. She says, okay, we'll try that. But if it don't work, we got this wonderful medicine for you. I'm like, that's okay. I'm not gonna need that. So I went home and I did my little research and found certain things that I tried, and it worked. It absolutely worked. I brought that blood pressure down within a month. I think I was somewhere in the 140s or 150s or something, and I brought it down to the 120s. It
Yeah.
was not quite the
Ooh.
standard like you alluded to, Vince, the 120 over 80, but it was somewhere in there, like 125 over 80 something, which was great for me. So that exactly does work. I think they call it autophagy, that
Hmm.
is turned on when you are fasting. Because, like you said, you don't need to eat 3 meals a day. That's a myth that you need to eat 3 meals a day. A lot of people can survive off of one meal, and I'm kind of right there. As being a septenarian, I don't eat a whole lot anymore because I don't find the need to, and I'm satisfied with really one good, nutritious meal per day. So it turns on something that's called, I think, autophagy,
Hmm.
where instead of burning sugars, you start to burn fat. So you
Mhm.
end up losing weight as a byproduct of it. So
Yeah.
and that's what our ancestors did. They didn't have the luxury of eating, excuse me, especially
Three
if they
squares. Huh?
were,
Hmm.
beg pardon?
I said three squares and stuff.
Exactly, 3 squares. The only place you're gonna get that right now is in the prison, but that's a whole nother story. But they did not have the luxury of eating three squares, you know. Um, so they did periods of where they did not eat. And I think during the pandemic, that was very telling when people were just, oh, I got to eat, I got to eat, I got to eat. No, you actually don't, you know, and especially when people are eating past 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, your body can only do one thing. Either you're going to digest food or you're going to repair yourself during the night, because that's the nighttime is when you repair yourself. So there is some definite merit to fasting.
Yes. Well, autophagy is the cellular repair that happens.
Okay.
So what is happening is the cells are removing the toxins and the
Mm-hmm.
wastes and fixing themselves. You talked about that feeding that takes place, and that's ketones. So
Mm-hmm.
your body creates these ketones, and basically, your body is feeding on the fat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you fast over an extended period of time, you don't require to eat something outside of yourself because you have something within you that is feeding your system.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens over a period of time is you'll actually lose fast.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I actually was involved in a 21-day fast. I
Mm.
fasted for 21 days. And at the end of 21 days, my body weight, I don't even want to tell you what I weighed. When I stepped on the scale after having done that fast, I was completely shocked.
Mm.
I was shocked by the number, and I was shocked by what I saw because I wasn't able to see my body as it was going through this process of the loss of weight.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also tell you that it completely reset my body. It completely reset my digestive system. And I eliminated some of the aches and pains that I had before I started that fast, because the reason that I went on that fast was to promote healing within my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here to tell you that fasting is a very effective way of fixing yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's also a very effective way of tuning into yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because it requires discipline. Brother Antonio mentioned the mental aspect of life. Well, you got to have some hella mental control when 10 o'clock rolls around and your stomach is rumbling and you thinking, I need to eat something. And you have to say to yourself, no,
Mm-hmm.
body needs to rest.
Mm-hmm.
10 o'clock, that's the optimal time for your human growth hormones to work. You got this window between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. where they function at their highest capacity.
Mm-hmm.
The human growth hormones are working on your behalf. So when you tune in to the circadian rhythms, tune in to the cycles of nature, that's when you get the benefit from it. But when you overrule those rhythms, when you overrule the bodily functions, then it creates a detrimental paradigm, and then you suffer as a result of it. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that we have to change. We talked about, we got movies, we got sports, we got all these things that we can focus on that are outside of ourselves. And by taking the focus off of yourself and putting it onto something else, you defeat the ability that you have to make improvements in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look around, you see people pushing these little carts. You go to the grocery store and you see people hunched over on the cart, pushing the
Mm-hmm.
cart around. It's like, no, stand
Mm-hmm.
up straight.
Right.
You accelerating the process to the point where you will be bent over like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and food is at the center
Mm-hmm.
of this whole paradigm. And as you said earlier, when we can make the food the medicine, then we can get the nutrients that we need in order to facilitate the autophagy and the other things that happen in our bodies to enable us to experience optimal health. And I think the importance of that is that it enables us to be effective in serving our community. You
Yes.
can't be an asset to the community if you laid up in the bed messed up. you
Mhm.
know you
Mhm. Yeah.
it doesn't work. You have to take yourself out of circulation just
And
because.
to your point, Vince, about this food costing so much, I don't find that to be an issue for me, because I grow my food. So if I can take a seed packet, and I'm a farmer, so I'm gonna always have some seeds on deck. This is sunflower, but still, the price of this package of sunflowers is $2.49. And that's kind of like the average. You can get some seeds that are cheaper than that. You can get collard green seeds, maybe $1.50 a pack or something. But there's going to be hundreds of seeds in that package. And when it comes to food and your body, like, what are you worth? Aren't you worth good
Mm.
food?
Uh,
Aren't you worth a nice $3? If you're going to buy from the stores, if you're going to go to Whole Foods, which I'm kind of not a proponent of, but that's just me. If you're going to go to places like that and spend $3 on a bunch of kale, then what, that is that worth it for your body? You only got one body. So why not make the choices and spend the money on those things that'll keep you here and keep you in better health? And when you grow your own food and you use these seeds, that cuts that cost in drastically, not even in half. It cuts it drastically. Because like I said, you get hundreds of seeds in a packet like this. And that can grow hundreds of flowers, hundreds of bunches of kale, hundreds of cabbages, or tens of cabbages. But I don't find that eating healthy is expensive, but that's just my experience.
well,
I know for a lot of people who do get, supplemental nutrition assistance, they find it hard. But I know some sisters is getting thousands of dollars in food stamps. It's like, okay, you can't buy a piece of cabbage, you can't buy a cabbage, you can't buy some kale. Come on.
well,
But it's all about
here's the thing
priority,
too.
and what is
Here-
your body worth?
well,
I'm
here's
worth
the thing too. When to answer that question, me and John Butler went to, it was actually an Amish guy that was a nutritionist. He was an Amish guy, and we went to one of his little workshops, and it kind of answers that question. It's about people talking about thinking about dollars and cents as far as eating healthy. And he said people talk about it's expensive, trying to eat healthy, but what counters that? He said try getting sick and see how much that costs you.
Mm-hmm.
So with those pills, with their medicine, if we didn't have this
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid and a few other things, we'd be in trouble at this
Mm-hmm.
particular point. But the thing I want to zero in again is, and it's powerful, marketing. The marketing aspect, of how this man market to us is very powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and it deters, and it works its magic by having us and challenging us and convincing us to be and act in a certain kind of way. And they pound us with this marketing every day, and it shapes your mindset and your consciousness. Something Dr. Amos Wilson said this, said, change the things you desire and the man loses power over you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say marketing. He's pushing all this stuff to you, and I gotta have it. And once you fall to receptive to that particular stuff, now he's controlling you, because I gotta get that red car, I gotta get that suit, I gotta get that this, I gotta get that, and you lose yourself, and you lose those basic foundational stuff, that things that we talk about in taking care of yourself, and you become that consumer. And now he owns you in so many words, and you find yourself allowing and being okay with somebody else doing those things that you should be doing for yourself, and at least exploring and researching for yourself. What you said, I always said, Lena, how does our heart work? What does the spleen use? Where's your liver at? And some of us don't even know what side of the body our liver is on.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the spleen at? What does it need as far as optimally to run? What does it need? How's I'm destroying it? So those things are like out of sight, out of mind, and those things that we should be knowing about thyself, knowing thyself. And so the way the man markets to you, man, that he's taking control, and that's why we need more education and platforms. And we should know this. We should know that the system does not have your best interest, and we should be creating things, and they should be supported by our people. But this is where we're at right now.
Well, you used a word in what you just shared with us that sometimes goes ignored, but it's really a reality of the whole paradigm that we're in, and that's magic. When you talk about marketing, you
Mm-hmm.
talk about the way that sound and color and
Mm-hmm.
all those things are
Hmm.
used to
Yeah,
affect
yeah,
our behavior.
yes. Hmm.
That's magic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got magic that can be used for good, and you got magic that can be used for things that are not good. And the reality of the situation is that we are affected by magic that is being used against us. And it circles back to the whole importance of us knowing ourselves, being plugged into nature, and doing the things that are beneficial to us. To go back to that seed paradigm that you just invoked, Sister Lena, when you take that seed and you put it in your mouth and you allow your saliva to touch that seed, then that seed becomes connected to you,
Mm-hmm.
and it is tied into giving you what you need in terms of your
Mm-hmm.
nutritional requirements.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you put your hand into the soil, you make a connection with the earth that bonds you to the earth. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's just like the whole idea of walking up to that tree and putting your hands on the tree
Mm-hmm.
and having your feet bare. There's a connection that happens when that happens because we're all electric beings
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting positive and negative charges at different times. And those things can be beneficial or detrimental to us depending on how we execute those things. But it's because we don't really know, because we're not connected to that knowledge, because this is something that we're not learning as we go through these
Mm-hmm.
educational institutions. To Hamtonio's point, why don't we know what the liver function is? Why don't we know what the spleen function is? They don't want us to know because if we did know, then we could undertake things to create healing of those
Mm-hmm.
things when something goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When you start getting gallstones and your gallbladder is not functioning properly, first thing they want to do is take it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to give you a drug to replace your gallbladder. They never say, well, what can we do to heal your gallbladder?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to heal your kidneys?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to heal your liver? No, what they'll do is, if you're fortunate, they'll put you on a list to get a transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And you may wait months, you may wait years to get that kidney. And in the meantime, you're going to the dialysis center, which again
Mm.
is generating profits because the
Big
treatments
business.
aren't free. You know, it's really about business, and all of this comes back to our ignorance about ourselves
Mm-hmm.
because we're not really diving into what the root causes of things are. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I use the kidney example a lot because I think it's so relevant to us as a people. You know, when you drive through our neighborhoods, you see dialysis centers. Over here at 105 in St. Clair, you got octoplasma,
Yeah.
you know, and so they're collecting our DNA,
Mm-hmm.
they're exploiting our bodies for personal gain. You know, it is said that the kidney is the seat of our fears.
Mm-hmm.
So people who deal with a lot of fear for whatever reason have kidney issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why do you have fear? Well, you have fear because we live in a fear-based society.
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, they had people walking around scared to breathe
Mm-hmm.
because we're gonna breathe in something and it's gonna cause a problem, and then we're gonna have to go to the hospital and they're gonna do what they do. But the reality of that situation was we were going to the hospitals to die.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of that matter was, going to hospitals to die, and they were accelerating the process.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're living after that fact, we're seeing the results of it.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a funeral on Monday. Brother Hamtonio had two funerals last week.
Mm.
When we look around, we're seeing the evidence of what they did. They're not going to, well, they have admitted it publicly.
Yeah.
There's Senate testimony that indicates that, something was responsible for the death more so than the actual disease itself.
Mm-hmm.
The treatment for the disease was the thing that was causing
Yes.
death, but they wanted to attribute it to something that, the evidence is that it was enhanced to make it more effective in terms of taking folk out.
Mm.
Y'all know what I'm saying. I ain't
Mm-hmm.
saying it, but you know what I'm
Right.
saying. And then there are the studies. I watched a film last night, and I'm going to put the link to it in the description of this video. And I would encourage everybody to watch this movie because it's one of the most profound statements about the state of our healthcare system that you will ever watch. It's called An Inconvenient Study.
Mm.
An Inconvenient Study. And what they uncovered was the fact that these concoctions that they have come up with to be safe and effective for various things have not been tested with double-blind placebo studies.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So they haven't been properly tested, but they've been administered.
Mm.
And the impact of administering these concoctions without the proper testing means that those who receive the concoctions have a higher incidence of autoimmune disorders than those who didn't get the concoctions.
Mm.
You start getting the concoctions within the first 24 hours of life
Mm-hmm.
in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take a number of them. It's like 150, 170, just this outrageous numbers of
Mm.
these concoctions that you're taking for different reasons. And they might be effective at preventing something, but they're also effective at creating another condition that causes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they don't want to do those tests is because the tests would confirm that you're better off not taking the concoctions than taking the concoctions. And so
Mhm.
with this one particular study, they ran it and they tested the folks that had received the concoction and the ones who hadn't received the concoction, and the ones who hadn't received the concoction didn't have a lot of the ailments that those who did get it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't let that out
Mm-mm.
because it would completely undermine the whole paradigm that they have us dealing with that justifies us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how tightly connected you might be to the whole doula situation or the birthing. I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling that you do have a relationship to that. But all I'm saying is that as parents, we need to be more aware
Mm-hmm.
of what we're doing to our infants and to our children. And we don't have to give them those things.
Yes.
Those are things that we can find ways around having to have those things administered.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue with that is we're providing insurance for our children to be around a lot longer than they could be, and to not have to suffer through some of the things that they are suffering from because they're taking these concoctions. I hope I've
Mm-hmm.
explained it in a way that is crystal clear without
Yeah,
actually
sure.
having to say what I was talking about. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm definitely connected with a lot of the communities where they are offering doulas and midwives and that type of thing, which is very, very important. And it's our culture. It's what we came from. We didn't have hospitals, and if we did have hospitals back in the day, we probably couldn't go to them because of racism. So we had to birth at home, and it was a natural thing for mothers to do. They birthed 9, 10 children at home, and without a problem. And these women were respected women of the community. These were almost like the shaman of the community, with their birth work. And so it's very important to be able to do that and not be caught up into the system. I know with my daughter having my granddaughter, I had asked if we could take the placenta. Oh, it was so much red tape involved
Mhm.
in getting the placenta, you just would not believe. But what
Mm-hmm.
I found out later was, well, we ended up not being able to take it because they were telling me that it was almost like a biohazard. Oh no, you can't have that because that's like a biohazard. And but what they're doing with those placentas is taking the placenta blood and stem
Stem
cells out
cell.
of that
Stem cell.
and selling those placentas.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the pushes for, and it's like you said, Antonio, it's the marketing. You know, having a home birth is dangerous. You should not do that. Now, in high risk pregnancy situations, of course, you want to use, hospitals. I get it. But for most people who are healthy, this is why you want to be healthy before you even conceive. You and your partner. You want to be doing those things that will allow you to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy birth. And that
Mm-hmm.
begins with prevention. But like you said, Antonio, they market this birth as something that's just, oh no, we shouldn't be doing that at home when we've done it for centuries at home.
When you say that, and also when you said placenta and stem cell, that was on my notes. That was the next thing I was about to say. But anyway, uh, it takes me back to the book, The Magical Child. I talked about it
Mm.
one time on it. It's a book, and they was in, I believe, in Uganda, where the Europeans was coming down and studying why these Uganda babies, 1 or 2 days old, the baby's head looking up, turning
Mm-hmm.
around and doing it, like, and the connection that the mother and the child had at birth, and it was talking about some of the things that we did back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
See, this system is almost got you 180 degrees out of phase with reality. They got you laying on your back when you're delivering. Everybody else delivered halfway squatting and standing
Mm-hmm.
up. They got you working third shift. They got you sleeping when you should be woke, and woke should be. It's just totally out of balance and out of rhythm. But because we are unaware of these particular things, and we putting in trust in folks that really don't have your best interest, because it's profitable for your ignorance. That's what we talked about earlier. All these
Mm-hmm.
things that we talked about, it's profitable to certain folks. How we just lay back and just go along. The people are just, cattle and sheep just being herd in a certain type of way or pattern. Let's think, how long we okay with seedless grapes and
Mm-mm.
seedless oranges and seedless watermelons? It's an inconvenience just to spit the seed out these days. And the seeds was there. It has calcifying agents in the seeds. This God put the seeds in the fruit for a reason. You
Mm-hmm.
see, and again, we convenience. We go along. We because and we're comfortable. We're letting somebody else steer. Take the wheel for us, and we have to educate ourselves and get out. And we have to know that you're under attack. Dr. Henry Clark say we don't have no friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
But
you're
us,
go ahead, Lena.
we don't have no friends but us, and we have
Yes,
to believe. We
yes.
have to believe in our hearts that we can save us and we can take care of ourselves. We got to believe that. I didn't get here to be a centenarian, not a centenarian, a septenarian, by myself. I had help. I had lots of community help, and I have helped in the community over these years. So we got to get back to doing for each other, helping each other out. I've been petitioning for work in the garden forever. For years, I did it by myself, and now I'm getting to the place where, yeah, a sister could use a little help. So let's
Right.
get on and come on board and let's buy up these
And that's
vacant
the point.
lots.
And that's what a community is. You might not have the time to do
Mhm,
that, and but support the organizations to do that so you
mhm,
can get it. You might not have the time to get out there and till it, but if you got organizations like you and Ridall and other places around it, support those things if financially, so you can have those particular things in there. That's what a community does. You know what I
yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, to your point, it's not about not having the time, it's about making the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the reason that it has to be that is because it's necessary for our survival.
Mhm,
for sure.
If you look at what's happening right now and the way the world's financial systems are changing, the way the US dollar is being debased and destroyed, there's going to be a certain level of inflation that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And as things become more expensive and the dollar becomes worth less, it's going to cost more for us to get the things that we're used to getting right now. So, what needs to happen is that we have to come up with some alternatives. We have to get to a point where we are self sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to get to a point where we think about doing things like living off the grid
Mm-hmm.
and not being so connected to the things that they're using convenience to sell us on to give up control of ourselves.
Yeah.
This is the reality that we're living in right now. If you look at what's happening on the higher levels of government, for instance, you look at the shutdown that we've been navigating, and you look at all the things that they're doing to keep us distracted from what we should be doing. As currency becomes less, it's going to be, or worth less, it's going to be important for us to be able to interact with each other and provide benefit to each other. So I'll use this example. Lena, you growing kale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm growing potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
We want to eat a stew that has potatoes and kale in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I give you some potatoes and you give me some kale and we both eat the stew.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't cost anything for that transaction.
Mm-hmm.
There was no money involved in terms of exchange. It was just one thing for another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, Lena, you do sound bowl therapy. Okay, somebody might be a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
You connect with that person, you give them $100 worth of therapy, and they give you $100 worth of plumbing work at your house.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
folks that are trying to control everything, they're not involved in that transaction because it's between you and that other person, you know. But they want to give us digital currency so that they can control everything that we buy
Of
and,
course.
and shut us down if we're buying too much of something that's not good for us. This is the future that they have planned for us.
Mm-hmm. And these smart cities where we can't go but 15 minutes outside of, you trapped in one geographical area. No, I'm not going for that.
Yeah, you read my mind because I was just going to invoke the 15-minute cities. And I'm not saying that the 15-minute city is a bad thing. Of course, it would be optimal for me where I live to be able to go to the grocery store that's literally 2 blocks away from me.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this 15-minute city is that it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have everything within 15 minutes of me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to get the organic produce, then I'm driving all the way out to Golden Gate to go to Fresh Time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 20-minute ride.
Or you coming over to my hoop house over there at the African American Museum, you can get all the collard greens and kale and cabbage you want.
There it is. And I can get to the African American Museum in 7 minutes and save myself the gas, or I can save myself the electric car that they want to send to me without a driver in it to take me to wherever I need to go within that 15-minute periphery.
This is the idea behind local food. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to stress this every time I get on a platform. We need the local food systems, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. We can't debate this no more. We have to have local food systems. It's better for the environment. We create an economic stimulus in the community, because if I'm growing cabbage and I can sell it, I'm going to make that money. If I'm growing kale, I can sell it, I can make that money. When I make that money off of that kale, I'm going to circulate that into the community like other communities do. Their money circulates. Our money don't stay in the community. But building these systems, these local food systems, our money can stay in the community. And we can build these economic engines for us. Okay. We also have value added food that can be produced from these gardens and these farms. We can take the tomatoes, the bumper crop of tomatoes. I know one year I grew nothing but heirloom tomatoes. And heirloom tomatoes, you can even save those seeds and you can grow those tomatoes again and again and again. I have so many tomatoes, I didn't know what to do with them. So I thought, well, we need to can these. We need to, preserve these. And that's what we can do. And I can share. At that point, I was giving stuff away. I wasn't even concerned with making any money off of it. But you can. And this is something that we can tell our youth. Our youth coming up need to know you can take a packet of seeds and put it in the ground and make money off of it. If you're growing what the people need. Most people I know in this community, what do they like? They like tomatoes, they like cabbage, they like kale, they like not so much kale, but collard greens. I grow some of the best collard greens you ever seen in your life. That is a money maker right there. You can literally grow your own food. Like it's like what is the guy from California? I can't call his name right now, but he said growing your own food is like growing your own money. Literally, those stems of collard greens and kale can look like money and can make money for you. So local food is where it's at. You know, we got better soil with local food. If you eating from this current system right here, you're eating monocrops where they growing food year after year after year in the same soil, and that soil don't have nothing in it. It's depleted. It's dead. They said by 2050, there's going to be no viable soil to grow anything because they have taken these crops and grown them year after year without replenishing the soil. We don't grow like that. We replenish our soil. I make my own compost and I make sure that that soil is nutrient dense. And if I purchase soil from a store when I have to, then I make sure that it's the best organic soil that I can put my seeds in. So there it is.
Well, money and everything rules, you know, and we are following a system that was created by a group of people that are totally out of balance, totally out of order and understanding. We have to go about it because our people and people knew that, and we found this out a long time ago in farming. You move that around, you give the soil a chance to reheal. You don't do things like that, but for the sake of money, you know, we would do that. We would go ahead and they'll just keep, you know, turning it over and over. What is the mindset of an individual who want to make seeds, who want to develop seeds? What is the mindset of that particular individual? Do they have your best interest at heart? So again, we're following the wrong lead, and we're going to have these conversations. We're going to be saddened by the results that we're seeing in our community, and continually until we change that. We got to reach the mindset of the individual. Until that individual, to that light bulb come on, you know, see, because that's why I say marketing. He's bombarding us and all our kids and people with his system and his way of life. And we have to understand and know that it's not working for us and it's not in our best interest. So we need to be seeking something else, another way of doing some things, you know. And I, like I said, I'm back again. Once you understand that he's not in your best interest, then maybe you'll start looking at alternative ways of doing some things.
Yes. Well, speaking of alternative ways of doing things, we've been talking about sickness, disease, and dysfunction, but we can also talk about solutions. And there are things that we can do that involve frequency, that involve sound, that involve color. There are things that we can do that relate to our understanding of our biosphere, of our chakra systems, of the you that you don't see. Because as I'm looking at Sister Lena, you know, I can look at where the heart is, but I can't necessarily see the heart chakra, but I know that it's there. I know that there's a third eye chakra. I know that there's a crown chakra. And I know that there are things that she does to enhance the way those chakra systems work. You know, so you can unblock the heart chakra if it's blocked. You can unblock the throat chakra if it's blocked. You can unblock that third eye chakra if it's blocked. And I just want to make sure that the folks have something that they can take away from this program today that will perhaps open some doors to them to pursue some alternative, since we use that word. Talk to us about sound therapy that you employ.
Okay, well, first I'm going to show you a book. You know, I'm good on visual aids, and I know this is backwards, but this is called The Healing Power of Sound, and it's written by a doctor. His name is Mitchell Gaynor, and he had a gentleman come into his practice that was suffering from a particular ailment, and I think he was a Tibetan man, and he gave Dr. Gaynor a sound bowl, and he began to use this in his practice and got really great results from it. And some of the things, and it just so happened, I opened up the book and it turned right to the page which talks about the how music can change your physiology and how it's so important for us to use sound, in our healing. One of the things that can happen with using sound is reduced anxiety and reduced heart and respiratory rates. Um, Another thing is lowering blood pressure. I tend to listen a lot to YouTube videos that have just maybe 3 or 4 hour broadcasts of healing music with healing frequencies, like 528, which is the heart chakra love frequency. And so I listen to that all day long because I'm using every element that I can, sound and smell and taste and touch, to promote healing. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing that can happen with sound is reduced heart rate. Um, they use sound a lot in hospitals. It's becoming the new medicine. Sound is becoming the new medicine. They're using it in surgery centers. They're putting on certain frequencies. They have the patients with headphones, maybe. And I've even seen some hospitals where they have people with a cart with a sound bowl on it. And they're going, like perhaps they're going in the neonatal unit and they're just playing that. There's something about that sound. There's something about that sound that actually it penetrates the cellular to the cellular level, and it heals you from the inside out. And it's not invasive. It's not like pills. It's not like surgery. It's something that anyone can participate in. I've had very few people that had a sensitivity to sound. I have a very powerful bowl that's in the key of E. That's the one I usually play when I used to come to Jan's circles over there at Ridall. Remember, Vince? That bowl is in the key of E. It's a crystal bowl, and it's quite powerful. And the only incident I've ever had with that bowl is a lady with a hearing aid. The bowl was just that powerful that she said, it was just a little disturbing for her because she had a hearing aid. Other than that, I've had no ill results from playing, and it's instantly calming. The first time I ever did the singing bowls was in the hood, in the beautiful hood. This was in Garden Valley. I was working with Kim Foreman, and we were doing a project in Garden Valley. And I asked another one of my friends to come and bring her singing bowls. We had a Reiki practitioner. We had chair massage, and we set that whole corner on fire. We lit that whole corner up. As soon as you cut the corner, all you could hear was the beautiful sounds and vibrations of that singing bowl. It was absolutely fabulous. And the people in the community were instantly drawn to it. They were like, what is that? I just feel so calm. It brings on an instant calm and instant peace and an instant healing to the body. So this is why I'm just so, and I'm a musician. So this is kind of like the next level of healing that I am pursuing, to put out there for the people.
That's a really powerful testimony, Miss Lena, because we are reminded about the power of sound. And then when we look around, we can see how sound is being used against us.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you turn on the radio,
Mm.
I'm not going to say the station, but we'll just say it's a hip hop station.
Mm-hmm.
And you listen to some of the songs that they're playing and you listen to the words that they're speaking, then you're like, oh, wow, this is different, because back in the day, we would sing songs like "It's Just My Imagination Running Away from Me," right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a romantic song. It was a romantic notion. It wasn't graphic. But when you listen to the songs that they're singing today, they're just some things. If I had a child, I couldn't have my child listening to that stuff because I wouldn't want them to be influenced. And then on top of that, they're using frequencies within the music
Yes.
itself that affect your sacral chakra,
Mm-hmm.
that affect your root chakra in ways that you're not aware of. So again, they're using sound to manipulate us and to
As a
affect
weapon.
us on a negative way. And then when you just look at the recording technology, it's the 432 hertz versus the 440 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
They have an awareness of this. And this is just getting back to that whole magic piece.
Mm-hmm.
because the truth of the matter is they running game on us,
Hmm.
you know, on levels that we're not even aware
We're
of.
Hmm.
oblivious to it. Yeah, it is.
They're running game. I mean, if you
Mhm.
go back to the administration of President Ronald Reagan, at a certain point, y'all remember he was struggling with Alzheimer's, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And he
Mhm.
had a wife named Nancy, and Nancy was into astrology.
Hmm.
And Nancy would plot his movements
Hmm.
based on what they were getting from astrologers,
Hmm.
science,
Hmm.
magic,
Hmm.
the occult,
Hmm.
these things that we demonize. You know, we're
Yeah.
saying, oh, you know, we don't want to do that, but at the same time, they're taking our archetypes,
Yeah.
they're taking our concepts, they're taking our historical figures, and they're appropriating them, and then they're using them against us. And
Mhm.
how we become victims is because we don't
Amen.
understand our history.
Hmm.
Mhm.
We're not tuned into who we are,
Mhm.
and they're using us against us.
Mhm.
Hmm.
You know,
That's
so
our technology.
yeah,
That's our
Mhm.
technology. Utilizing the powers of the universe. Our ancestors worked in that manner. They took certain seasons, they took certain cosmological influences, and that's when they did their work. That's when they did their magic. And if we could learn that, we would really be up there in our knowledge. Utilize, and don't the Bible talk about using the signs and the seasons and the cosmos? Okay.
that's
See,
one of his favorite
not quite.
quotes.
I was just about to say, I was just about to say that. That was just about to say for our Bible listeners and scholars here. They say for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So if you don't, our preachers, teachers teach them to stay away from astrology, but it's right there in Genesis that tells you that from the beginning. So
Mhm.
you're gonna miss the signs. So
Yeah.
that's why we don't understand energy, we don't understand frequency, we don't understand colors, vibrations, and all of that. That's when you start getting a deeper understanding of this thing called life. And
Mhm.
then now you'll be able to point out and identify some of these things that you're talking about, Vince, that is being casted upon us and being to manipulate us. If you're unaware of those things, you're oblivious to those
Mhm.
things are being projected at you. But that's
Mhm.
why you have to get into it. And all those things that y'all talked about with the music and what you're saying with the bowls, Lena, our ancestors and all, it was a part of their system. They
Mhm.
understood all of that. And that's why I preach so hard. Please go to the Sankofa, look back at what you left behind
Mhm.
and engulf yourself into that and see what our ancestors have laid down for us to learn and know how to do something because it's there. It's
Mhm.
there. All those things. Now in this new society, we're looking at, oh, look what we're doing now. Look what we discovered. And look what we found out about, acupuncture, about
Mhm.
the sound bowls and energy. And if you just knew your stuff, you'd have found that out a long time ago.
Well, you know, it's really interesting how this society has an egocentric view of itself. And it would lead you to believe that this is the most advanced civilization that has ever occurred in the history of the planet.
Mhm.
But then when we look back at the things that we have accomplished and the things that we used to do because we knew who we were
Mhm.
and we knew what we were, so we're actually just kind of catching up to where we used to be. I'll give you a primary example. Who in this country can explain how they built that great pyramid on the Giza Plateau with the accuracy and the precision
Mhm.
that they built it and enabled light to shine from a star in the sky down the shaft of that edifice
Mhm.
at a certain time of the year?
Mhm.
And there are other locations in that country where you have a similar phenomenon based on the position of the stars and the
Mhm,
position of the things that they built. They still can't explain
mhm,
how they were able to do that. So
mhm,
the fact of the matter is we have fallen away from our greatness
Mhm.
And we have to remember our greatness in order to understand or to comprehend. I'd rather use the word comprehend than understand, because we know the
Mm-hmm.
implication of standing under something
Mm-hmm.
and standing over something and accepting that knowledge. But when we comprehend what we were able to do and what we can do, see, that's the other part of the equation. When you realize who you are and what you are, then you begin to comprehend what you are capable of,
Mm-hmm.
and you comprehend what you can do to reverse the narrative that we're given. We live in a fear-based society, and religion is one of the things that they do to enforce that,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to alter your behavior so that after your body ceases to use breath, that you don't go somewhere that you could have gone if you did certain things and said certain things, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
use the fear of death to motivate our behavior and to control us.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you understand that you are an eternal being,
Yeah.
that you, in actuality, you will be forever, then they can't use death to control you.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So we have to get to a point where we don't allow them to control us by using fear to prevent us from doing things, to prevent us from understanding who and what we are. That's a primary thing in our existence right now. The way that they use fear
Mm-hmm.
to control us, to motivate us, to control our comings and goings. You know, they got half the people on this planet scared that they're gonna have to take some digital identification.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just gonna say that there are things that you can do,
Yes.
and there are things that you should do to reclaim your sovereignty
Mm-hmm.
as a being in this universe.
Yeah.
How how can you prove who you are? How can they prove who you are, who you aren't?
They know who we are. That's
Yeah,
why certain things are in place because they know exactly who we are
yeah.
as the melanated majority on this planet. They know who
Hmm.
we are. That's why certain things are in place. That's why certain systems there are in place. And that's why we're addicted to certain methods of living. But we got to love ourselves just a little bit more in order to reduce our grasp on this system because this system got a chokehold on us. And all it takes is just a few to raise the frequency. I was learning about meditation. Maybe we need to meditate on it. Meditation is very good to shift the frequency in a particular community. And meditate during these times where the cosmos is most receptive and supportive with their energy. I know that the what is it? The
So,
solstice is coming up. The winter
mhm,
solstice would
mhm,
be an awesome time to have a community meditation on those things that we want to bring forth into the so-called new year. Well, we know that's not the new year. How you gonna have a new year when things are dead and
dead
dormant
season.
in the height of winter? So we
Mhm,
already know what the good new year season is. But
mhm,
using those cosmological occurrences and using those energy frequencies to build a frequency within the community that's going to promote healing, that's going to promote well-being, that's going to promote prosperity and abundance. Because when we look at it, we are abundance. If you look at it, we are abundance. You don't have to count your breaths. Do you have to wake up in the morning and say, "Oh shoot, let me see, how many breaths am I going to have today?" You don't have to count your breath because the universe is in place to let you have the amount of breaths that you're going to have for the day. So you don't have to worry about counting those breaths. You don't have to worry about whether your circulation is going to move because it's going to move automatically because
watching your heart to breathe,
God made it. Go
asking
ahead,
your heart
babe.
to beat.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Well, I'm glad that you invoked the solstice, because traditionally we would have Dr. James Brown to tell us what we should be doing. I did reach out to Dr. Brown. Unfortunately, I didn't hear back from him, but I've gone through it enough to be able to share with you. So we have the solstice that will go into effect on December 21st,
Mm-hmm,
and it's a 4-day period.
mm-hmm,
And what we have been advised to do during this 4 days is to meditate as much as we can, to
Sit still.
fast,
Mm-hmm.
to fast
Mm-hmm.
and to set our intentions
Mm-hmm.
for the coming year. Even though, as you stated, the year don't start until spring.
Mm-hmm.
They start the year in the dead of winter, and that's part of the way that we've been manipulated because they
Off
changed the
balance. Off
calendar on us.
balance. Yeah, off balance. Throwing
It's
you off
off
balance.
balance, and
Mm-hmm.
it affects us that way. But
Mm-hmm.
the solstice is the time that your subconscious mind is most receptive to what you
Mm-hmm.
suggest to it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you want to, some people call it resolutions. I'll just say setting intentions. You want to
Mm-hmm.
set your intentions, plant them in that fertile ground that is available to you during
Mm-hmm.
that period of time.
Question here. Is that intentional? That's the question we ask. Is that intentional? Because he got you off kilter, got you doing something in a time frame that is not beneficial for you, or got you thinking in a way that is not beneficial at that time. Is those things intentional?
Mm-hmm.
You
And the
know,
answer, the
It's
answer is
yes.
yes.
yes. If we
Yes.
So So one other thing that you want to do during this fast, I'm just completing what Dr. Brown shared with us, is take in a liquid that includes the juice of oranges. So you can
Mm-hmm.
actually take the oranges and blend them with water in a high-speed blender and put some cayenne pepper in there, and that is going to be something that provides a benefit to your body.
Mm-hmm.
I got a cold pressed juicer,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm gonna be buying myself a gang of organic navel oranges if I can find them. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually going to be juicing my oranges and using the cayenne pepper. But it's optimal that you use this liquid fast
Mhm.
as an opportunity uh, to repair systems, and to generate that spirituality that and the clarity of mind that comes with um
Mm-hmm.
with fasting. So you
The-
got a beautiful person with you. You want to
mhm.
introduce us to your is it your grandbaby?
This is my granddaughter from my daughter, from my oldest daughter. This is Aubrey.
Okay,
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
Hi,
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
Say hi,
Yeah.
everyone.
Hi, everyone.
I knew
Hi.
she
I,
was going to sneak her way into the to the
yeah, yeah,
camera.
yeah. It's
That's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
This is a
Mhm.
family show.
Yes, it is.
One thing I want to add to that, Vince, what you're saying during that time. So you see, once we understand things and cycles and life and how the sunrise, fall in the middle, all that stuff plays a part. And our ancestors figured that all out and
Mm-hmm.
understood those particular things. So also in the spring and summertime, at least in this part of the country, the energy on the planet of the food and the plant is in the leaves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's green. So you know the energy is not in the leaves at this time because it's fall and the
Mm-hmm.
branches are bare. So a lot of the foods we eat should be root type of foods because
Yes.
that's where the energy is, as far as on the planet, is in the root of when you far as getting food is concerned. So I just wanted to add that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and that is the dietary change that you
Yeah,
make
right.
during the winter times. You want to eat the root vegetables because that's where the energy is at that point. And then when spring comes, that's when you get back to the leafy greens and the other things. Dr. Brown also shared with us something called the rejuvenation diet. So if anybody is interested in getting a copy of the rejuvenation diet, just put a comment in the chat. I'll go to the comments and put your email address in there, and I will send you a PDF of the rejuvenation diet. So um, we have gotten some news you can use.
Mm-hmm.
You can get your own sound bowls, or you can connect with Lena when she does her presentations of sound bowls. You can also get some tuning forks. I've heard that those are quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
You can also go online. You can go to Spotify and YouTube, and they have Solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats, and you can put on some headphones and utilize those
And
modalities.
tuning forks.
Tuning forks, yeah, you can use those things to create those vibrations that are beneficial to you. Also, let's redefine what eating healthy means.
Mm-hmm.
because some folks say I eat healthy, and then you'll see them eating some M&Ms.
You know, some of the vegans eat Oreos and say, okay, because Oreo's supposed to be vegan. I'm like, oh, for real? Okay, loaded with white sugar. And for those eating white sugar, sugar ain't vegan.
Yeah. Well,
Sugar is not vegan. It's
yeah.
At
processed
least
with
their form
pork.
of sugar that they put in there is not.
It's
Yeah.
processed with pork.
Mhm.
They call it pork albumin. That's one of
Hmm.
the ways they process white sugar. It's so
Well,
it's oh
yeah. There are a lot of things that are described as being vegan. Like if you get some of that home pride bread, right? And it's got mono and diglycerides in it. And guess where
hmm
they get the mono and diglycerides from? They get it from pork. Yes. So you thought it was vegan, but it wasn't, you know.
mm,
So
mm,
we
mm.
really have to redefine what eating healthy means
Yes,
and tune in. And I'm not going to tell everybody that they have to live on a plant-based diet.
right.
But what I will say is something that we alluded to earlier in the program, and that is that in many African cultures, meat is not the main course.
hmm
The meat is something that is used to season the food, but not necessarily to be. And then the other thing is that we have an issue because we overconsume protein in our country.
Yes, yes,
So we don't need as much protein as they tell us, and the fact that we eating too much protein
yes.
means that it's causing problems. And it goes back to that recommendation by the US Department of Agriculture
hmm
of 3 meals a day, because they wanted to sell food that was grown by the farmer so that they could support them. It
Yes.
always comes back to money.
hmm
And you know that we are the best consumers in this country, and possibly the best consumers in the world. So we have to work against our nature of being consumers and think more in terms of being producers and cultivators and growers. So Miss
hmm
Lena, I got your phone number.
Okay,
I'm gonna
call
be
me.
I'm gonna be coming for some of them tomatoes, because I don't want
hmm
you throwing them tomatoes away,
I
or
will.
anything else. And I'm looking forward to the day when I can learn how to grow food from you.
Oh, I'll teach you. It would be my pleasure. Anyone out there in this viewing audience who would like to learn more about growing your own food and being self sufficient and beyond self sufficient, let's be community sufficient.
Hmm.
Let's think in terms of community sufficiency every time we talk. Because self sufficiency has a connotation that I'm doing it by myself. And we no longer want to do that. We want to be community sufficient. Like Vince said, if I'm growing the kale and he got the potatoes, we got a meal. And
Yeah.
maybe Vince got maybe Antonio has the chickens. You
Mhm.
know, I know chicken farmers in the city of Cleveland because they are licensed to be in the city of Cleveland. Due to the laws that were in place, so we can have things like that. We can have chickens in some parts of Ohio. We can have goats. So let's come together. Let's build our local food systems. Let's save our seeds because there's a monopoly on seeds right now. I ain't gonna mention the name, but they trying to buy up every seed and patent every seed on the planet. So we need to grow heirloom
Wow.
foods where we can save our seeds and have the same. It gives you the same pretty much crop every year, and without any deviations. Because you really can't trust the seeds that's coming from the food in the grocery store because you don't know what you're going to get. You might not get a strain of peppers, for instance, that is the same as what you bought. So let's save our seeds. Let's come together. Let's create ecosystems. I
Yeah.
envision an ecosystem where we take care of each other in this. It could start on one community block where we create an entire ecosystem where we're we're growing our own soil through composting, where we are taking rain barrels and collecting our water because that's the best water for our crops. It's rainwater as opposed to fluoridated water from the system.
Mhm.
And we're growing our own food. We're sharing. We're canning. Let's just create that. We can do it because we have the expertise. And I'm
Mm.
ready to give of all I have of the information that's been shared with me.
Well, as the weather warms, I have a compost bin. So I'm going to start saving compost for you, and maybe that will be my donation to your growing effort. Okay.
Wonderful.
I
Yes.
have that, and I also have abundant leaves because I got 2 cottonwood trees behind my house. And I'm not as OCD as my neighbor because they be out there in the fall every day with the leaf blower. And I'm letting the leaves sit on my lawn so that the things that depend on those leaves being on the lawn can get what they need to get.
Right.
I know they upset with me because I stopped putting fertilizer and pesticides on my lawn, and I harvest the dandelions in the spring. I'm letting them grow.
Mhm.
Okay. But
Good medicine.
my pledge to you is I'm going to start saving compost because I eat fruits and vegetables almost every day, and
Wonderful.
there's some parts of them that I throw away or I put in the garbage disposal. But I'm going to start saving my compost for you, and then maybe I can contribute to your growing effort.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we've been together for a minute here today.
Mm-hmm.
And I am grateful to you for picking up the baton and running with it because we got a lot of good, useful information and had some very constructive conversation today. So thank you for joining us on 360 Info Network.
Thank you.
How could someone get in touch with you if you want that or?
My Instagram is Encore Evolutions. Encore ENCOREEVOLUTIONS. And you can text me at 216-773-2750.
Repeat
All
that
right.
one more time.
216-773-2750. And
Right.
I'm on Facebook too, Lena Boswell.
Okay. I'll put links in the description for the video, and they'll get your phone number and your IG tag and your Facebook tag and connect with you. And I'm looking forward to growing with you, Lena.
Oh, yes. Let's grow together. Let's
Okay.
grow together, y'all. Come
All
on.
right. Any parting words, Brother Antonio?
No, it's all about knowing yourself and understanding, that you're under attack. So that means you have to make a way for yourself. You have to
Mhm.
empower yourself, because people don't have your best interests at heart.
All right. As always, in closing, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day. Peace, everyone.
Peace,
Peace.
peace.